Welcome back to another weekly GMBN Tech Show. Coming up on this week's show, we take a look at some rope spokes, some custom painted bikes. We have a brand new uploader for all of you guys and girls to enter all our bike caves and top mods and stuff. And of course, we have loads of that stuff that you've all sent in already. Okay, so first up on tech news is rope spokes. Who'd have thought it? So pie rope spokes are actually made from a Vectron, which is a fibre type material, and they're braided. So it's kind of a weird concept, and hear me out on this because I know some of you were thinking, God, how's that going to work? Because spokes have to be made of steel or aluminium or carbon or something like that. Now, spokes actually don't rely on compression forces that much. They're more relied on the tension, so therefore you can use other things. And as you might have seen in an old Bodges video that I did, I actually repaired a broken spoke using cable ties. And it's obviously not going to add that much tension to the wheel, but it was enough that the wheel didn't buzz on the frame to get through the frame, enough to get home, basically. That's the concept. Now, this company, Pyrope, look on screen now, they make this high-tech fibre Vectron, and it's 5 times lower density compared to steel, so they're super light. But they're also the tensile strength on them is incredibly strong. It's a braided construction, and because it's basically a braided rope as opposed to like a solid structure, in theory they should never ever snap. I think this is a really interesting concept, and I really want to try this because I love to lace up a set of wheels basically using this stuff and try it for myself because I think it would work really well. I mean, there might be weight limits and stuff like that. It might only be applicable for cross-country riders or perhaps road cyclists, but I think this is one of the coolest and strangest bits of tech I've seen for some time. These Pyrope spokes, I think, could be a really good bit of future tech. What do you guys think? Is it mental to have spokes made of rope? Let us know in those comments. Now, next up is just something I spotted on Sam Hill's bike. Obviously, I wasn't actually at the most recent EWS where he won, but he's actually running Michelin DH22 tyres on his bike. So obviously Maxxis are huge in the world of tyres, so Continental, all the other brands, but Michelin actually were huge in the 90s in the downhill scene and all the way up to sort of the early 2000s. They kind of sloped off a bit. They've always been there, they've always made some really good tyres, but I actually have a feeling that they're going to make a massive comeback. Now, they're obviously doing and they're proving very well in the Enduro World Series. So if you have a look on the screen now, you'll see Sam with his bike there, and you can see very clearly the Michelin branding on the tyre. Now, back in the day, the tyres that were famous were the Comp 16 and the Comp 22s, which were later called the DH16 and the DH22s. The rubber compound was phenomenal at the time. Not many people were doing soft or sticky or even slow rebound rubber compounds at the time, and the Michelin hooked up like almost like nothing else. They're a little bit slow and casing was a little bit heavy, but I think this new DH22 is actually going to be a bit lighter but a better casing on it. Of course, it's going to make the most of the new tech you get in tyres now, whereas instead of us just having a soft compound where those side knobbles can deform, they tend to have a harder compound base to give the tyre a bit of structure with soft compound rubber over the top for the traction. So I think it's going to have a lot of that stuff in it, and I can't imagine Sam Hill running a tyre that's going to be that heavy or that slow because of the fact that A, he's winning races on it, and B, he's got to pedal them with flat pedals, so he needs it to be as efficient as possible as well as grippy. He's got prototype tyre inserts made by Nukeproof, and I've spoken to Nukeproof and I'm actually going to get my hands on some of these soon to have a look at, so we'll get those on the tech show as soon as possible because obviously tyre inserts are big news. You know, they're actually one of the best ways to stop flats during a race these days. He runs his handlebars at 750mm, and interestingly, because he used to run volume spacers in his forks and shock, he's not running any volume spacers front or rear. So I actually find that quite a strange setup, but it's clearly doing its thing because he rips. So since last week's show where I talked about the Sick bicycle Sleipnir, which is of course their concept bike at this stage, Jordan from Sick actually dropped me a line with this picture. It's a rendering of it, and I think you'll agree it looks pretty special. Now, he just wanted me to know a few facts about this before they go into production. I think this is pretty interesting. So it's 180mm travel front and rear, that's what it's optimised for. Rolls on 29-inch wheels. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of 29s anyway, so I really like that. And if it's designed for racing and tackling in rough terrain, then a bigger wheel in a lot of situations can be faster and better controlled. So I think that's a good choice. He wants to point out the fact it's completely silent because it has no derailleur, no chain guides, no chain slap, no losing a chain like ever. Like this system of this bike, very simple, a high pivot basically with an idler roller connecting to a pinion gearbox. Now, the gearbox, of course, gives you centralised mass on the bike. It puts the weight all low down on the centre part of the chassis. So your unsprung weight ratio is really good. So obviously the front end of the bike's nice and light, and it's taking the weight that you get with a big cassette and chain and everything off the back of the bike and putting it onto the middle. So your suspension, just like on e-bikes and other sort of heavy duty bikes like the Orange, we checked out a Eurobike with those plates that bolt on to add weight to the main frame. It's just like a really, really good setup. Now, they wanted to build the bike to make it future-proof, so there's a few things. So there's no weird standards on it. So it's a ZS tapered headset, 31.6 dropper post it takes in there. And interestingly, it takes a 142 single-speed hub out back, not a 148 boost, because on a 142 single-speed hub, the flanges are way further apart anyway, which is one of the goals of 148. So they don't actually need to go that wide. It's post-mount disc, off-the-shelf bearings and fixtures, so if you ruin your bearings, you knacker them, you can get them in any sort of hardware type store. Replaceable dropouts as well, and one of the cool things about the replaceable dropouts does mean that there's something else coming, I'll tell you in a sec. Open source parts on there because they want people to be able to sort of like use this platform. Now, what if the pinion gearbox goes obsolete before the frame does? Well, firstly, I don't think that's going to happen. I think pinion are just getting warmed up, and I think they're going to keep a standard there with the footprint of how that mounts onto a bike. Now, it's quite cool that they've got a plan B for this, and it's to generate a cradle that can accept a BB73, and there'll be other cradles as well to accept other future parts, basically. And the idea is, in combination with the replaceable dropouts, you could, if you needed to, put a rear derailleur on it and a regular bottom bracket. So I think that's a pretty flipping interesting bike. And of course, it's got their wild, really progressive geometry, really long front centre, probably got quite a long chainstay on it, slack head angle, steep seat angle for climbing. Looks pretty good to me. What do you think? Okay, so this really isn't tech news as such, but custom paint jobs, you gotta love them. And Fat Creations, which is done by Ali McLean, they've got to be one of the best sort of companies out there. So check this out. This is a pivot on screen, and I think this is one of the most mind-blowingly beautiful paint finishes I've ever seen. There's several shots of it there, and it's just unreal. Now, in case you didn't know, some of the bikes that Ali paints at Fat Creations, he obviously does his business with his wife. I think she does all the detailing with the graphics and stuff. But some of those bikes have 200 hours worth of work on them. So of course it's not cheap, but genuinely, I've seen probably 20 or 30 of his bikes, and I've never seen a custom painted bike with a finish that good. I think it's like hands down the best I've ever seen. Of course, they're very expensive, but they're very bespoke. I urge you to have a look on his Instagram. Give him a follow if you haven't already. It's at Fat Creations. It's on the screen now, just with a few other bikes and stuff, because he's done so much cool stuff, and I think it's really inspirational. So check out Fat Creations, wicked company. And the last bit in tech news is actually a bit of computer tech, and it's something I'm super excited about. Is we have a brand new uploader service. So you no longer have to like tag us and stuff or email us, and we don't have to filter through all those different email accounts to find stuff. You guys can simply click on our upload page. The link is on the screen at the moment, and it's also in the description below this video. You simply click what submission category it is. So for example, I'm going to click here for Bike Cave. Then I'm going to put my kick-ass Bike Cave entry. Tell us a bit about where you are, what your name is, all that sort of stuff. Click on the links. Make sure you go to the terms and conditions, just so you know. It basically just says that you're giving us authorization to put your really cool bike caves, rewinds, all that stuff on this show. And then you can click to upload your photos. And I've just got to find my cool photo that's on my desktop that I've got ready. Okay, so there's the picture of my bike cave that I'm going to submit into Bike Cave. Click on the link and in it goes. And then simple as that, click upload and you get a little message pop up on your screen that says look out for your bike cave on the channel. It takes the hard work out of writing an email, makes it a super easy system for you guys to enter. So let's get cracking. Get your top mods entries in, get your rewind entries in, anything retro, whatever it is, send it in and send in your bike caves. We love them. And next week, I'm hoping that you guys are going to inundate us with all of those entries and we can pick straight from the new system and put them straight into the show. So get cracking, get them in. Okay, so straight into Bike Cave now. Bike Cave, of course, is where you keep your bikes, where you work on your bikes, where you tuck them up at night, all that sort of stuff. Could be the back of a caravan, could be under the stairs, could be anywhere. Wherever it is, send your bike cave in. Don't forget we've got that new uploader now, so there's a link to it on the screen and there's a link in the description below this video. It's nice and easy and it means it goes straight into a box that makes me put it straight on the show. So get your entries in. So first up, we got one from Mason Martinsons here. Hi Doddy, I've been loving the GMBN Tech channel, especially the bike caves. So I thought I'd try and get my own onto the show. My bikes are stored mostly in the garage on hooks and ceiling. Bike cave's a shed in the back garden. My mum said I could have it. I'm 14 years old. The bikes I have are my Cannondale Jekyll, very nice. My Hero Extreme X6, my first proper mountain bike. My Iron Horse bike, just a hardtail for getting around. Freestyle BMX and a BMX race bike. Thanks for making great content and checking out my bike shed. I'll tell you what, Mason, you're doing pretty alright here. You've got some trick stuff in there. I like your skateboards hanging up there. You've got a pretty flipping good sound system in there as well. A couple of floor standers. I'm not sure what they are. They could be Mission or maybe Celestion speakers. And a subwoofer as well by the looks of it. I know it's nothing to do with bikes and bike caves, but it must sound good in there. I also like your rack on the wall there for holding the bike. That's really cool as well. That's a good setup. Your bench is looking good. Your pegboard's looking good. Harley Davidson badge on the tool chest there. Nice setup. I like it. I think it's a smashing little setup you got there, dude. Wicked, so thanks for sending that one in, Mason. Okay, so next up is from Dan Scotney. Doddy, here's some bike art I've recently made out of some recycled bike parts. The pictures you showed last week with the bike frame, lights and shock lamps are really inspiring. Yeah, they're really cool. And actually, if you look on Pinterest as well, there's quite a lot of other bike art related stuff on there. I think I did a page on there a long time ago. It might give you some more inspiration to make your own stuff. As you can see in the pictures, there are coffee and tea coasters, nice, yeah, a wall clock, and a custom-made bike cave sign. Oh yes. Oh, I think we need one of those for in here. What do you reckon? Should we have our own bike cave sign? I reckon. Let's get one made. In fact, if anyone wants to make one, or if you want to make one, or any bike art for that matter, send it in. And if it's cool, we'll get it up on the walls in our studio here. In the meantime, let's have a look at the rest of your pictures, Dan. I'll tell you what, I really like the clock. Nice and simple. Great use of an old cassette there. I've got a few of those hanging around. I could probably knock someone up myself. So I guess you just got a clock mechanism, taken it out of an old clock and boshed it straight in there. Bish bash bosh, nicely done. Very nice. Yeah, the coaster's a good idea actually, although I would be worried. I have to say you'd scratch the glass on that table, but at least it looks cool. That's more important, isn't it? And a good mug too, by the way. Nice touch. Next up is from Scott. Hi Doddy, loving the show, keep up the good work. Thank you Scott, it's always appreciated, but genuinely it wouldn't work without you guys sending in us great content. So if you guys keep doing that, it makes the show great, so please carry on. Sadly, my wife wouldn't let me have a bike cave. Boo. So I'm lumbered with a bike box which just about fits my bike tools and fold away bike stand. Watching the show has been an inspiration to me as I suffer from multiple sclerosis and it encourages me to get out and remain as fit as I can. I haven't been riding in 3 weeks as I fell off my bike and broke my elbow in 3 places. Oh, dude, that's not good. So feeling sorry for myself and having a mention would cheer me up. Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, it's not all bad because when you said it was a bike box, I thought it was going to be really bad, but actually, it's basically just like a small shed. I think that's great. That's not bad at all. I like your little furnace outside. The boardman's looking great. Is that George Clooney? What's the story with George Clooney hanging up? Is it like you throw darts at him or something? I don't know. Very odd, but it does look like a good size. You can see a work stand in there. I think that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, nothing else to say. I think that's actually a pretty good use of space. I reckon you could slowly extend it, though, without your wife knowing or noticing too much until it's magically like the size of a shed. I reckon you could do that bit by bit. Scott, I think one of the coolest things is that despite suffering from multiple sclerosis, you're still a mountain biker and definitely a toughened one if you're out there busting your elbow. So let's hope your elbow heals up fast. Don't ride on it too soon because pretty nasty. You want it to heal properly so you can get out there and shred. But nice work, Scott. Thanks for sending that entry in and try and turn it into a shed without your wife knowing. Okay, so on Friday in the Dirt Shed show, I was chatting to the guys, especially Martin, about Camelbaks because really it's been so hot recently that we can't physically carry enough water with us all the time. So, and this is how the story goes. Camelbaks now, there's loads of different styles out there, and I think it's a really cool product because it's kind of like a Hoover, and I touched on this in the Dirt Shed show that it's such an established brand name that even though Camelbak is the brand and the product is a hydration pack or a hydration bladder, you tend to use the word Camelbak. Where's your Camelbak? And it might be a different brand, but it's still a Camelbak. So they've kind of done what they've done at Hoover, really, and I think it's amazing. But did you know the story about where they came from? I think this is really cool. So there was a medic, this is way back in like the mid 80s probably at this point, called Michael Edson, and he's also really into his triathlons. Now, he was entering a race called the Hotter Than Hell, and he was worried that he couldn't carry enough water. And he knew just how important it was to keep hydrated, especially doing that sort of race where you're exposed to the sun, you're in the saddle for such a long time doing stuff. So he got an IV bag, which you or I will probably know as a drip bag from hospital, with the tube, slung it in a tube sock, bulldog clipped it to the back of his jersey and stuck it in the rearward pocket there, had the hose hanging over his shoulder, and although he got some funny looks from other cyclists who were struggling to use their water bottles, he completed the race and stayed hydrated the whole time. And then the concept for the Camelbak was born. And I think you'll agree it was a brilliant idea, because at the time bikes were fairly heavy and loading them up with loads of water wasn't ideal. And of course, being bikes without suspension in those days, water bottles were prone to firing out. So actually keeping hold of your water can be quite tricky and could be quite tricky. And this is what the very first Camelbak would have looked like. This is a remake just to celebrate them. So it's been around since 1989, trading as Camelbak. And I actually had one of the very original ones of these. It didn't have this graphic on it. It had a little purple patch with a neon orange writing on it. And it's literally a neon sleeve with a really, really puny little strap system and a bladder inside. As simple as you get. Of course, this bladder is like a modern day bladder, so it's a little bit better than the original that was in there. But the whole principle was the same. Stick it on your back, hose goes over your shoulder, drink while you're riding. I think it's an absolutely brilliant system, and I love the fact there's so much variety in them now. You get the ones that sit up high, you get the lumbar packs that are down low, even the bum bags, or as some of you might know them as, fanny packs. So there's a lot of different options out there, and I think it's just one of the coolest products that's ever been in mountain biking. So if you look on screen now, here's a few of the original Camelbak adverts. And in fact, this one with the spacesuit on the screen you see now, it's a little bit more, it's a little newer by comparison, but if you look at the bottom, there's the halfback and there's the Camelbak. And in fact, the colour of the halfback is exactly what my original Camelbak looked like. And then some of the other adverts, you can just see, it's so old school. Camelbak is the best drinking system ever made. It's user-friendly and super lightweight, your answer to thirst. And you know, they actually had a moniker back there that said hydrate or die, which basically became the company slogan. And it's true, and it's just really quite cool. Hydrate or die. Camelbak, there you go. I think what they've done is brilliant over the years. And like I say, you know, they've done that thing. They've created a Camelbak, they've created a Hoover. Pretty cool. Okay, so now it's time for top mods, and we've actually had so many in, but I couldn't decide which ones I want. So actually I'm just going to put a single one in this week, and we're going to have a bit of a heavy session on those next week. Now the one I've decided to put in, I think is a bit of genius. So on most multi-tools, you'll find there's probably a tool that you don't use that much. So in particular, the one thing I'm going to show you on the screen any second now is a multi-tool with, that you normally have a little tire lever on there, which of course, as you know, on a multi-tool, it doesn't really do a lot. It can be used in certain situations, or you could bin it off. You could strip your multi-tool down, just like my friend Finn has. So Finn works at TF Tune Shocks, and he put a house key on there instead. So check this picture out. I think that is one of the coolest hacks and one of the most useful hacks I've seen. So he keeps that on his bike all the time. So he's always got his house key with his bike. I think that's genius because you can really minimise on the kit. And you don't really want to be carrying keys in your pocket if you can help it anyway, for obvious reasons. So I think this is a great hack. I'm actually going to do this myself to one of my own multi-tools because I don't use that little tire lever thing either. I can generally get my tyres off with my hands, and I do carry a separate tire lever by Topic, so that's all good. And I think that is one of the best hacks I've ever seen. So as well as top mods, if you guys have got any really creative hacks like this, I would love to see them. I think that is a bit of genius. What do you guys think? So tech of the week time now. And one of the coolest things I saw at Eurobike was the brand new DT Swiss F535 fork. And look what I magically have here in my hands. I've got one here to have a little go on and get to know it a bit on the inside because it's got position sensitive damping, which of course I'm really interested to see how that feels out on the trail. Just a quick version of position sensitive damping. It basically means in this case that there's almost no damping for the first sort of portion of the travel. So I think it's up to about a third of the travel. So it's incredibly supple and active. But then as soon as you get high velocity impact of any kind, the damping kicks in. So I think this could be an amazing fork. But there's a few little cool things I just want to pick up on. So as you can see, the top of it concealed, there's no dials or anything, and the same on the bottom, it's all tucked away, very neat and very stealthy looking. You actually take out the end of the axle, and within that there is a tiny little Torx key here. Now that is used to access under these caps. Just going to undo this one here. Even the caps themselves are really cool because they have a captive bolt, which means you can't lose the bolt that holds it together. There's a rubber seal that runs around it, and it says compression right side, because the caps look the same, but obviously they're not going to fit on the wrong side. So just a really nice bit of detail in there to make sure you get it right. Now this particular one is set up for a remote lockout. So I'm going to give this a little go on my Scott just to see how the bike feels basically with this fork on there. And this is compatible with the remote lockout that's already on there. And it's got real cool stealthy cable routing that goes out the back of the fork. So instead of having a dial on the top like you see on the Fox forks, it's really concealed and out of the way. I think that's really, really cool. But most importantly with this fork is the fact that you're covering up all of these dials, which of course on normal bikes, you get the dials for easy access to them. I think the reason that it's so cool on this bike that you cover them up is the system for setting the fork up in the first place. Now DT have a system for adjusting the sag using an app on your phone. So I'm going to show you that once I've downloaded that and I've fitted the fork to my bike. But you set it up with accurate weight settings and that, and it tells you exactly the settings you should be having for you. And apparently, once you've set it up, you never need to adjust anything. Pure stealthiness, basically. And there's another couple of cool things I just want to show you. They've got an integrated mudguard, so very similar to the Syncross mudguard. In fact, that I've got on my Scott on the Fox fork that came on there. Very nice. It plugs in the back of the fork arch there. It's got bolts to hold it in place. It covers up the little waffle pattern where the mud would get in there, and extends out the front. It's really neat, just an integrated option. I really like that. And also, there's something else that's really cool. The cable routing here for securing the cable to the fork brace itself. On most bikes, you have a little plastic clip that goes over the hose, and you have like a 3 or 3.5mm bolt that goes into the fork. Now it's very easy to strip the threads accidentally on that bolt. So what DT have done is they've got a route all the way through. The bolt goes in from the back, so of course it's replaceable. There's a little clip which is made of plastic to hold the hose. When you tighten the bolt from the back, it crimps down on the hose to hold it in place. And it comes with a spare one as well. So really cool thinking from DT Swiss there. Love what they're doing, and I can't wait to just have a feel of this to see how it is. But what I can show you just out of the box, look how supple that is. Just moving out of my hands against the stanchions, you can see how well that moves. And that's because internally on the air spring, it actually has a coil spring that's activated for the first 8mm of the travel there before the air breaks in. And apparently it's completely seamless in feel. You can't tell when it goes from the coil to the air. So very cool bit of tech there. Okay, so next up it's time for bike build. I'm just going to zip upstairs to the workshop, so I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so welcome back to bike build. Of course, the bike's coming along quite nicely. I had an issue because the particular chainring combination that came on this DMR Axe crankset is not compatible with this frame, and it's actually too big as well. It's a 34 tooth. Now, Praxis very kindly sent me one of their wave rings, but that was also a 34, and it's a bit like that. I didn't realise actually until I went to fit it. So, thankfully, Ollie Wilkins and the DMR crew sent me one of the DMR rings. So this is called the Blade, and this is in a 32, and this looks banging. This is really nice. Narrow wide profile on there. It's a direct mount. So I'm going to take this existing Praxis chainring and spider off the crank, direct mount that, stick the crank on there, and then we're going to get a rear derailleur on, and we're going to look at the chain. So I've got a pretty cool chain to go on here too. So as you can see, the interface on the back of the crank there is ready to accept that new chainring straight on. If you're doing this on a chain set that's already been used, for example, you want to give it a good clean, but this is brand new, so it's a fairly simple process. I just need to locate the correct holes there and then just slide it into place. Now, even though this has just been taken apart and it's all in good nick, I'm still going to put some thread lock onto those bolts because they can be a pain and they can be a source of creaking, which of course we all know creaking can drive you crazy on a bike. So we don't want this bike to creak. Right, so the chainring is in place. I think you'll all agree that looks pretty sweet, nice and slender. The 32, of course, on my personal bike, I run with 12 speed on the back, I run a 34 because I can get away with the bigger chainring and it suits where I ride. Gone for the 32 on here because not only is it a bit more compact, a bit more lower down and stuff like that, it's got the cassette on the back with a 9 tooth on the back. So of course 12 speeds tend to have a 10/50 spread. This one starts at a little baby 9 tooth, so it's going to give it a pretty good gearing, I think. So just time to put a little bit of grease on this axle here and then slide it into the bike. Okay, so get this box components mech out. And won't be needing that. And then a 5mm Allen key. And let's get this into place. Okay. So I've got our derailleur one. Oh, it's got a strong clutch on that. Oh, you're not going to drop a chain with that bad boy. So as always, when you're fitting a derailleur to a bicycle, the first thing you want to do once you've secured the main hanger bolt is get your upper and lower limit screws sorted out. So they're the 2 screws at the back of the derailleur. In this case, it's an Allen bolt actually, which is quite a nice novelty because you tend to have to use a Phillips or a flat screwdriver to do that. And basically, you want to make sure that when you adjust the high one, the upper guide wheel is completely underneath the smaller sprocket, and then the same with the bigger one under the bigger one. So in this case, it's this one for here. I can just about see under there. There we go. So my upper and lower limit screws are done already. So for a chain, I have opted for, and I've been really superficial about this because it looks great, black and gold Connex 11 speed. So out comes the chain. It's got its own dedicated master links inside. Now when you're speccing a chain for a bike, they come in a single length, and you're going to need to adjust the length using a chain tool or a set of chain pliers. Now what you need to take into account with any chain length on a bike is some bicycle designs you're going to get some chain growth as the suspension compresses. So what you want to be doing on a full suspension bike is release the air from the shock so you can cycle the wheel through its travel. Then you want to get the chain, line it up around your system, and then using a third hand, this is the way I recommend do it, gradually pull the chain in and hold it using that third hand, cycle the back end through its travel, and you want to make sure that the derailleur stretches when it's at the absolute limit, but not crazy. You don't want an acute angle like that because it's putting too much strain on it, and you can actually snap the derailleur in the event of a big compression. Okay, so this is a little bit of a bodge just for demonstration. I'm manually holding the derailleur in the biggest gear there, and I've just got my knee holding the back end almost all the way through the travel there, just to accentuate the point of what you're looking at. So in this particular case, it's actually not far off. So I would actually split the chain. I would take out 2 links there, and I would take out 1 here basically, and then I would join it together. I'm just going to let the rear wheel just travel back down again, just so you can see the effect there. See, it slackens it right off there. So the idea is you want to see the chain at the most stretched it can be, then you pick your correct chain length. Other than that, you join your chain and you're good to go. Okay, so they're just a few of the factors you need to take into account. In an ideal world, you want to make sure you do your cable routing. I don't want to do that live on camera just because I'd have to faff around getting the internal cable routing through, so I manually hold the derailleur in position. But you get the idea of using a third hand. So this particular one I've made out of an old spoke, which I just cut down and bent the ends around. It's a really valuable tool to have in your collection, especially for trail side if you manage to break a chain. And of course, let the air out of your rear shock, cycle the bike through its motions basically, and see where the chain is at its longest. Give it enough slack at that point so it doesn't strain the derailleur itself, and then you've got your good chain length. So what I'm going to do now, in between now and next week's show, is get the rest of the gears in place, get those brakes on, get it basically set up, because we're nearly there now. And then we're going to look at a few cool finishing things, including some suspension tweakage. Okay, and the last thing I just want to talk to you about before we disappear for this week's show is, if you like our gear, if you like our clothing hat, you might want to head over to our store now, because we've got a summer sale on at the moment. If you have a look on screen, you can see some of the really cool stuff you can get. It's up to 50% off. And of course, The sale is on until Monday the 6th of August, so you've got a little bit of time there. Not that long left now, so get on there, get yourself some bargains. We love to see some shots of you guys repping our gear as well, because there's new t-shirts like the one I'm wearing, there's the cool mugs. Anything you've got, any GMBN gear, hashtag, get some pictures and get some hashtags going and share them. Let's see them, let's see what you wear, what you like. So there we go, there's another weekly GMBN Tech Show in the bag. I hope you guys liked all the content on the show. Please don't forget, when you're sending your stuff in for us, for Bike Cave, for Top Mods and for Rewind, use that brand new uploader. The link for it is in the description just below me here. Give it a whirl, it's a really cool little service, super easy to use. For a couple more great videos, click up here for a basic shock air can service. It's a super easy thing to do, and it means your bike will be feeling plusher all the time out back. And of course, you can check it to see if there's any damage, which might cost you money down the line. So that's a good one, that. And of course, if you like the channel, don't forget to give us a thumbs up.